I can't even stress to you guys how important it is that you just get after it, just embrace your fear. Just embrace it. We all have fears, and I will never forget the first time I ever submitted a photograph for competition, and I didn't do very well, and one of the judges actually was a little bit on the rude side, and I don't like that. I think that's sad. But you know what? Doggone it, I'm so glad that I did it, because we don't learn from the stuff we do right. We learn from the mistakes we make. And when somebody brings up something to your attention and then they show you how to do it, it's like, okay, tomorrow morning, man, let's get after it and we are going to do better. And I always believe, like Scarlett O'Hara, tomorrow is another day. And in fact, for those of you that are out there, this is what my challenge to you is, okay? Learn from the critique this week that we do. And the next time we do critiques, because I know this isn't the last time, I want you to submit another image and do it better than you did this time. I promise you, you're going to grow as a photographic artist so quickly, so much more quickly than the people out there who are just the spray and prayer kind of guys that just do everything and just say, well, this is my style and blah, blah, blah. I think that's the biggest bunch of baloney I've ever heard in my life. I think that as humans, we're always on a strive to do something better and in a more interesting way. And if you only do what you've always done, guess what? You're only going to get what you've always got. So, don't be afraid. I mean, I can't tell you not to be afraid. Be afraid, but do it anyway. Just do it. So
I got to share a story.
Go ahead.
The very first time that I submitted an image for anybody to see was at Bambi's workshop.
Oh, was it?
It was about 7 years ago, 8 years. You did something in Atlanta or something. I don't know, whatever it was. She had that amazing, what was that book that you had that was a bestseller that came out? The Art of Weddings or something like that.
The Art of Wedding Photography.
And then she's having workshops like, oh man, I've got to go. I got to learn from this person. So I went to the workshop and everybody's submitting images, right? And so my image comes up and it wasn't very good. The entire class started laughing at it.
Ouch.
And my heart just sunk a lot, right? But I always remember that Bambi didn't laugh at it. And she gave some constructive critique about it. It hurt. It really did hurt, but I learned a lot from it. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, getting better each year. And slowly but surely, I got to the point where I can tolerate my imagery. But in the beginning, it does hurt,
yeah.
And it's not easy. But you have to put it out there to learn.
Yeah. And to this day, I've never taken a good photograph. I'm not kidding you. I still to this day, I know that maybe some people think that's ridiculous, but I'm not kidding you. Every single picture I take is crap. I go, oh, I wish I'd done it differently. I mean, literally within 30 seconds, I'm going, oh, if I'd only done this or only done that. So get prepared. It's your whole life. You're going to have this. So it's all right. I think if you start having that attitude where, oh, I've already arrived and ooh, I'm a big deal, and
I don't care how good you think you are or how far you think you've come. You always feel like that. And so you're always going to feel not confident about doing something, no matter what point of your life is. So you just have to get used to your fear and embracing it and putting it out there, because you're going to have it your entire life. I don't care how good you think you are, because you're always going to be improving, innovating, pushing yourself, and trying something new all the time. So it's just with us the rest of our lives as artists.
And you're only as good as the last picture you took. So if you just crawl under a rock and don't do anything, then guess what? You're not going to get any better, and it's just going to be one of those things that happens. Okay, Uncle Scott, what do you think about this photo?
Okay, well, it's one of these kind of HDR pictures again, showing the detail. The place of this opera house or wherever this was completely beautiful. But the subjects to me are kind of getting lost in this picture. So I would like to either change the camera angle, maybe move them closer to the camera to get them a little bit bigger, but then you can still keep the background in. The lighting to me is a little bit too obvious. And what I mean by that is that I see absolutely no, the shadows on them are you don't see it. You don't see that drama in the photo. So in a particular picture like this, where that background has a very dramatic feel to it, and then you light the subject so obviously, which I like to say, without any shadow. So I would like to get the lighting off the camera more to create more drama in the photo to match the background and to move them up. I might have, in terms of post-processing, it has a bit too much yellow in it for me, so I would like to mute the colors a bit so it's not so saturated there. I applaud the photographer for trying to incorporate the background and the subjects in the photo. And what happens, I notice a lot of this particular style, is that I notice that a photographer gets confused. And what they're trying to do is show two things at once. But coming from a graphic design background, you got to choose what you want to create the impact. Is it the background or it's the subjects? And once you start doing both, then the viewer's eye starts, they don't know what to concentrate. Am I concentrating on the background or am I concentrating on the subject? And with that confusion, you lose the impact of the image. Great images, you see whatever that photographer or that artist wants to see first, bam, you see it first, and then all the other elements complement that picture. So in this particular case, you know, you kind of look at the background, you look at them, and then there's equal importance on both. And so I would like to see probably a shift in choosing on what they're trying to feature here.
Yes.
So for this, to improve this shot, would you have brought them closer to the camera then and shot more wide open?
Well, you could have kept the same angle and everything if you just simply moved them up 2 chairs or so, right?
Just so they would rub?
Yeah, they're a little bit larger.
And see, I don't know that it doesn't bother me where they are in the photograph. The elements that are making this photograph not work for me is the fact that she's got her arm horizontal up around his head. If she had the arm that's up around his neck, if she were like leaning on it to lean towards him to get cozy, I would feel more that it would feel more believable to me. I actually like where they're positioned because then I can see her legs. I think to me it makes it to this nice line that leads to them as a couple. I do believe that they are the whole scene is too bright. The background does compete for attention with them as a couple. And I find that this might be a good opportunity to use one of those smaller video lights. For instance, the ice light, the Giorgionis ice light, or even the Lowell GL1 would be a fantastic tool, like a small spotlight. And that way it's not so bright in the picture, and it's not so, there's not so much light in the whole scene. Because I feel that the whole image needs to be just a bit more moody.
Yeah, if you could take this exact same image, right, and if you would have brought that background way down,
yeah,
they would have popped off more. And even the chairs leading to them, if you could take that down, and then you could see them, but it's just the busyness of everything kind of being equally lit that causes confusion.
But it is a very sellable print. So if the maker's out there, I don't want you to be discouraged because I'll tell you, even though there are a few little areas of imperfection in this photograph, this is a really interesting photograph, and I'll tell you what, in the mind of your client, I think they would love it. This would be the kind of photograph that I would want on my website or in my marketing material because it is a bit of a surprise. It looks a bit different. And while we might critique it from a more of a technical standpoint, it's still going to be a very nice photograph for a client.
There's a wow factor to it.
This photograph falls a little bit short for me. First of all, I love when people incorporate architecture in their imagery. I think this environment is absolutely beautiful. But we have seen so many pictures where you have the little people, and I'm not talking about people of short stature. I'm talking about where you take the subject and you make them a little tiny person in the picture. And the problem with that is that you have to really fight to see them, and with very few exceptions, it's been done by everybody and their brother. So, I mean, Marcus Bell, I think, or Ryan Shembry were maybe the first two people I ever saw do that. And they did it very effectively, where everything, even though the person was a tiny element in the picture, You could not miss that person. They were absolutely, it was very obvious that they were there. Whereas in this scene, for a few minutes, you have to kind of really look around to try to find the bride and groom. And even though they're placed right in the center, I just feel as though there's other elements that are competing for attention, like the white lines that are underneath where their feet are. See how there's that white line that goes across on the yellow strip? There's white, kind of the flooring is a bit bright on many of those. And so those white lines compete for my attention immediately. My eye goes right to them, and so I have to kind of fight to find the subject.
I think you can make this photo work, but you have to do a lot of editing to it. I mean, because, like Bam said, the subjects are completely lost. It takes you, where are they? What's going on here? But the architecture is stunning. So you would have to bring down this a lot and bring them out a lot to make them more obvious. And I'm not sure if it's worth it to spend all that time.
You know, you can do,
that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
There's a really pretty easy way to do it when you do your editing process. There are some companies like a Graphic Authority that makes some beautiful dark textures that are fantastic, that can actually look great for bringing down the tonality of a photograph, and then you can paint out your subject by using a layer mask. There's also another cool company that has some killer textures, and I'm a texture junkie, so I absolutely admit it. I own them from everybody just about. But there's a new company I found that I love, and it's called Shutterstock.com. And here's the deal with Shutterstock. They don't pay me anything to tell you this, and I want you to know all of the other texture people are going to hate me for this because I'm not kidding. They have a bazillion textures. But here's the deal with them. They have this thing where you can buy 5 for like $25 or something like that, or you can buy like 1 for $25 and like 5 for $50 or something like that. Or you can buy like 30 textures a day for a month for $250. Let me tell you, guess which one I purchased. Yeah. And every single day I went and I loaded more. But it was great because they have a variety of different kinds of things that you can add to your portfolio. And they've got some very beautiful textures that could actually look great on an image like this, that are not busy. Because you don't want something that's going to become a distraction.
Now, if you were to take this same image and you wanted to incorporate the background, I love looking for circles and lighted circles. I don't know if people saw my recent imagery from China, but I kind of had a similar situation where there was this circular light that was above. And what I did was I brought the clients a lot closer to me, and I shot them kind of waist up. And then I put that background in the background like that. So you could do the exact same thing if you wanted to incorporate that, but just bring their subjects way up to you and kind of just shoot them maybe just kind of waist up. And then with that same background, I think it will have a much higher impact.
I love the connection between these two people. And one of the things that I like that the maker did is it looks like it's a bright, sunny day. So what they did is they found this, this is like, generally the 12 o'clock noon is not like the time of the day when we like to photograph. But there are occasions when we are required to do a job under circumstances that are not ideal. And I'm a firm believer in, letting and doing the best job I can under the set of circumstances. So that doesn't mean that there are times when perfection does not apply. In this photograph, I like the way that the tonality that they've chosen to process this. I think it actually works for this couple to overexpose it a little bit. I like the fact that the groom's hand is on her face and his thumb is right by her cheek. It looks believable to me. I think that what I would have probably done was moved my camera position around the subject slightly so that I'm not looking just at the back of his head. I feel that is pulling my eye away a little bit. And I'm also wondering if the maker would crop off a bit of that area, like where the back of his head is and his arm. Do we really need to see so much of his shoulder and so much of his back? Because it's brighter than her face is, and so I feel that it competes. And I don't know that it's adding anything to the photograph.
Yeah, the angle's a bit, I mean, she looks great at that angle, but then again, you're just seeing the top of his head. So, so she looks great there, but he's kind of just not too attractive in the way that that's being shot. And so cropping part of that out would help, changing the angle, not shooting the top of his head, and all those type of things would work. And also, it's always difficult when you're using, like this is the reason why weddings are so difficult, is that you get sharp contrast of tone. And so in this particular case, the umbrella is a lot darker than what they're wearing. And so that's kind of competing and creating that contrast. So if they maybe used with a lighter color umbrella, it might have worked a little bit better. And so, you know, maybe that wasn't an option, but I totally understand. But just changing the angle of it, I think would have helped us a lot, and cropping in.
Rain.
What about her hand? I'm seeing this in lots of photos that we've reviewed, the crops like half a hand at the ankles and stuff. Is that becoming less of a no-no nowadays, or does it?
You know, it is a no-no where you crop, in the traditional realm of photography, you're not supposed to crop at the joint. Like you would not crop my hand here because that looks like you don't have a hand.
Because she has fingers, it's okay?
Yes, so in the technical real world of and traditional realm of photography, you would not want to crop it like where the fingers are. However, there is some flexibility in that. If there is a great deal of energy in the picture, if it's a dynamic photograph to begin with, in editorial photography specifically, which editorial is photography that is more playful, more fun, imagery that is not super static. In other words, it's not super, it looks more like you happened upon a scene. Mm-hmm. Those rules become of less importance. In other words, they're not like deal breakers.
If it was being judged, though, would that be pointed out?
Yes, but that would not be the big thing that the judges would look at. In this photograph, they would be, the first thing they would be docked points from would be, because his jacket is so bright, right. That number is number one, the fact that we see the top of his head. The second area, and I really believe that if the maker had just moved their camera angle around, you could have gotten rid of a lot of those issues, like the hand, her hand and such. I don't know that we even need to see where her hand is, maybe crop it a little bit tighter, because do we really need to see the left-hand side where that umbrella area is all of that important? So you have to think about those elements, and I try not to get too hung up on traditional rules of perfection, but they are there for a reason.
Exactly.
And they are important. That's one of the things that separates us from an amateur with a good camera, is that we understand the rules. But there are times when you can break the rules successfully. Great question. Okay. In this particular photograph, you remember how we've talked a lot this morning about body language and about the importance of you know, how the way that you bend joints and the way that you move the body. In her case, she's sitting on dukes. Her booty is flat to the ground, or whatever she's sitting on. So there's not, and because of that, it doesn't look believable that she's got her face turned towards her young man. It's like she's turned, just her head's turning. It's, again, her body is saying no, 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 but her face is saying yes, yes, yes. So there are some things that you can do to make that more believable. And here's one of them. Instead of having your subject, I need a chair, so I need one of y'all to come up with a chair. Okay, now what I'm going to have you do, Erica, right?
Yes.
Okay, Erica, sit down, just sit down in the chair. Just go ahead and park your dukes. So this is what's happening. Now turn your face this way. See, this is kind of what's going on with her. But instead of doing that, let's try something else. I want you to stand up for a second. But this time when you sit down, Erica, I want you to sit on your thigh. You're going to sit on this part of the thigh, not on the back of the thigh, but on the front of the thigh. Just barely park your dukes. I want you to scoot your butt. I want your butt hanging off. Scoot over to that left hand, over that side right more. Yeah, very good. Okay, now take this arm and bring it down here on the cushion. And with your chest, I want you to lean towards me. Now, do you see how by doing that, see now her energy, her body energy is leaning in this direction. So that if I were her boyfriend or her husband or whatever, then that energy flows together. Does that make sense? So the real difference is where your subject sits in the chair. Now, just since we've got her seated, notice what happens with her legs. Take this leg, and I want you to stretch out and bring it in front of the other leg. Beautiful. Okay, so now, see now how we've taken, put it side by side. Just put your legs side by side. See how this makes her legs look thick and heavy? Now, go do that again. See how we've taken that energy now, and we've drawn that area, and it's created a beautiful S curve on her body.
You can bring this foot out maybe a little bit more. So.
She's going, yeah, I feel like a pretzel. But I'll tell you what, it's going to straighten out your spine perfectly. I mean, it's just a great way to go. But there's one other thing. Here, stand up for a second. One other thing you can do, you don't always have to have people sit on the side of the thigh. Here's another way that you can do it. Okay, come, and I want you to sit down, but this time you're going to barely sit on the edge of the seat, both dukes. I mean, just barely park your dukes on that. I mean, very much. Now I want you to slide back. Just slide back and go ahead and sit up. Beautiful. Now, do you see how much straighter her spine is? Why? Because she's sitting on her thighs now. She's not sitting on her back side. So stand up for a second, and I just want you to sit down like you're going potty. Just sit down on the, here, I'll do it so you don't have to, you gotta go embarrass. I know. This is the basic potty pose, okay?
Where's the magazine?
I know, I'm sorry. I know I'm gonna get hate mail for that one, but I'm sorry, I'm just too old to change. Okay, but this is kind of what we do, you know, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty for anybody. Because look what's happening with my tummy. I mean, and our girls are just hanging down. It's not good for anyone. But by having that person stand up and then sit on the very edge of the seat, and then slide back, you shift the center of gravity so that the biggest part of our body, which is our booty, is in the back. And then it makes your back, it just naturally makes your back stand up straighter. Okay.
Not unless you're an Asian guy, then you don't have any booty back there.
Well, we weren't going to talk about that.
Well, I'd like to say Cora Ann, who this is her image. She says, I love that Bambi doesn't just say that is what is wrong. Instead, she shows me what I can do right to improve the image. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, so you know what your homework is now. For next time, I want you to work on that posing, because I'll tell you what you're doing right. She's got a great connection. I mean, I love the groom in this picture. Yeah. He looks like he is all over that chick. He looks like he loves her to death. And so I just want to see her feel more part of that scene.
I think, you know, what we've been learning is that the lean creates the connection. So when you're posing your subjects, especially when you're posing a couple together, you gotta, where are they leaning? I mean, everything that Bambi has been talking about is lean. Oh, she's not leaning. So that lean creates that energy in that direction. So you can see the lean as an energy. It's just like posing, right? Let's say here's the camera, right? And I'm standing up straight like that, but if I kind of lean towards the camera, I'm pushing my energy towards the camera. Same thing when you're dealing with subjects too. And so you got to be always mindful of where that leaning process is. It has a great, I love the way that they feel. I mean, this photo has potential of being really amazing because of, look at the way that they're looking at each other and they're feeling. And usually to get a guy to be into it and feel like that, that's not easy to do, because usually the guy, it's really hard to get that emotion from the guy. So this photographer did a really good job with that. The lighting might be a tad, it looks like maybe they're using a reflector or something like that, I'm not quite sure, but it's a tad strong. And I would pull the lighting, because, okay, this is what I like to do. You see the highlights in the background and see how the highlights on the trees? Okay, and see how the light hits the trees? So however the lighting is hitting the background, I like to have the same lighting on my subject so it looks believable. Yeah. So when the light is just in front and too kind of on camera-ish, it's not going to have that drama like the background is. So if you move that reflector a little bit more off to the side, and you can see some shadow on her cheek, and you create a little bit more shadow on the subject, it's going to be a lot more believable in regards to lighting. And so you put all those things together, the posing and the lighting, and wow, bam, you're going to have a beautiful image there.
Just to say, she did use natural light with a silver reflector only for that shot.
So maybe with that silver reflector, turn it on the white side, because the silver was a little bit too strong. The other thing about that, just really quickly, I know we're running out of time, but is many people, like for instance, let's say that this is the light source here. Let's say that light is the sun. Many people turn a reflector like this and use the full strength of the sun right on the flat part of the reflector. Your better bet is to turn your reflector like this so that the sun barely skims across it to just give you a whisper. So let's say that Scott is our subject and the sunlight is right there. So rather than go like boom, and then cover most of his face and flat light his face. I might want to go like this and just have just the edge of the light. See where I'm standing in relation to Scott? So the reflector, there's the sun, there's the reflector, and just the edge of that light is going to highlight his face. And a white side of the reflector is going to be a much softer side, so I think it could be absolutely beautiful.
In this particular photo, I like that they're trying to create a dark mood here, but they just, it kind of missed a bit because the lighting is not even on their faces, and he's posed awkwardly. He's like, you know, leaning, there's no connection there between their bodies together, and the lighting is, the lighting is not even on their face, it's on his ear, so the ear is being focused on here. So I think if the lighting was done better and he was posed better, this could be a very dramatic image.
Because I love the way they treated it. I think the way that they have, what the subjects were wearing was great. I like the idea that their subjects are lit by light, but I agree with you, Scott. There's something about, you know, a couple that is in love, it is just wrong for him to have his hands in his pocket. It's like, okay, I'm gonna kiss you now, like that. It doesn't feel like there's.
But they are Asian, it looks like.
Yeah. Okay, Scott, and your point is?
Well, you know, we're a little bit shy.
Oh, okay. But I have to say, for the maker, if you're out there, I got to tell you, I really like where you were going, and I want you to pursue this again, because I'll tell you, you're this close from something that really is just cool, because I like so many elements in the photograph, and I love the way that the subjects are isolated from the background, and I love the environment and the clothing, and everything works. I just feel in this particular case that you missed the mark just a little bit because the lighting is a bit, the way that your lighting is in position and the way that your subject was posed don't match. Yes, Stephen?
Do you feel any different about it if it's as a fashion photograph?
Oh, absolutely. If this is a fashion shoot, it's all about the dress or the suit, then in that case, yep, it works and it works well. Great, great question, Stephen, because that's how important context is in what you're talking about. Because this category is engagement category, and in engagement category, this may not do well. However, if you were judged, for instance, at the WPPI competition that we have every year, in engagement, this would score probably low. But if this photograph were entered into the editorial or into the fashion category or illustrative, it might do a lot better because the dresses are illuminated nicely, and the way they've done the suits is very believable. Great question.
Go, Bambi.
Okay, very, very simply, I love the scene. I just don't want the couple to be there. I know. It's a beautiful scene, and I love the effort that the maker did. You know, there are two things that separate, to me, photographers. There are some photographers who just, who do as little as possible to get the job done, and they do an adequate job. You can tell that the maker, that he had to go, or she went to the extra length to drag them out into this environment, and I think that that's a really, I give them a lot of credit for that. I think that where they've placed the subject is not bad. My issue is, what is the problem? You guys could probably critique this now. We've talked about it all morning. What's wrong? Start at the base and work your way up. Here, come here, cutie. Okay?
She's leaning away from her.
leg. I mean,
Yeah, see, her body energy says, get back. Okay, you have really bad breath. Okay, but there's more than that wrong with this. Number one, you see how he is bending at just the chest?
Yeah.
His knees, there's no bending of the hips or moving the legs one way or the other. However, if you had, I want you to turn your feet this way a little bit, Scott. Mm-hmm. Good job. And now, separate your feet a little bit for me. Good, and I want you to rock onto this hip. See, first of all, doesn't that make his flat dukes look better? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, because you know he doesn't have any dukes back there. He definitely needs a belt to keep his pants up. But you could take her now, and instead of seeing the back of her hand, see, we only see a nub. This is what we were talking about, how we see just the nub of her hand. But now, if you had them just holding hands like this, you could bring her in front of him, and now, you see how now that looks more believable? They could hug. She could even turn her face, and you could see the better side of her face. Hug him with the cheek. Oh, love it. See how my shoulder is kind of leaning this way? So there's a variety of things you want to do. So you have to start with the base, which is the feet. Bend one of those knees. And you know, one of the things that I do to practice when I was starting out, which is how I taught myself this posing, is I stood in front of the mirror. And I said, okay, I'm standing in front of the mirror and my feet are together. How does that look? Well, it doesn't look all that great. It makes me look like a statue. Well, what happens if I just separate my feet? Okay, well, guess what? My weight kind of shifts to one hip when I do that. And then take that foot and then start turning your body. Okay, how does that look? Do I look thinner and more curvy now than I did a minute? Yeah, absolutely. Well, what happens now if I just bend my knee and then bring it and drop it in front of the other leg? So you can practice these in front of the mirror, and it's a great way for you to be able to learn to communicate that with your subject. Okay, Scott, anything else?
No. Just again, when you see two sticks, that's a no-no. It just can't, when you have two people posed and you just see two sticks there, do something with it. Okay, next image. Okay, they have a good connection with the photographer, they're feeling comfortable, they have a nice expression, but everything that we talked about before, the posing, it's very stiff, right? And it looks like a typical snapshot taken that anybody could take with their point and shoot camera and click. And so there's not a lot of kind of skill in regards to posing them correctly or have a more romantic feel to it, and it's just there. So
there's a couple of things. First of all, I would say move your subject away from that background, because the background competes with your subject. If you move that subject, those two kids, away from that background about 3 feet and used a shallow depth of field about 2.8, that background is just going to become a model, just a soft modeled background, so it's not going to compete for attention. That's number one. But the second thing that I encourage you to do, and I need a couple of subjects for this. Lorene, let me have you come here, cutie. And let's see, and Mark, come here, Dad. So here we have our couple. Are you guys okay if I put you together? Okay, we know you're not a real couple, so it's all right. So the first thing I'm going to have you do, Mark, turn your feet towards Lorene, and Lorene, come in a little closer. You're going to stand about this close with one another. Lorene, separate your feet from me about a shoulder's length, and I want you to push your hip towards Mark's hip just a little tiny bit. Come in closer with your feet. Good. Your back knee needs to stay straight. This front knee is the one that maybe we would bend that knee. So now we have choices. Let's try a couple of different things. Let's take, and now stand up on both of your feet flat. And now I want you to turn your feet more this way, Lorene. Keep going. And now this hip, push it towards Mark. Beautiful. Bring this arm, instead of bringing it like way out here, with your shoulder, bring it right on his chest. Come in cozy right here. And with your shoulder, I want you to kind of get in cozy right here. My camera position might be here. Turn your shoulders a little bit this way, Lorene. Beautiful. And now, Mark, can you put your hand on her back just a little bit for me, please? Excellent. Just your back hand, and we'll put this one just like right back down here. With your back shoulder, I want you to lean into her a little bit this way, and now with your chin, lean towards her. Come in real cozy, get in cozy right there. Beautiful. Love it. So now we could take her hand, relax your hands. Just when I have a client who with their hand is getting like claws, that's what I do. I take my hand, see where my finger is on her hand right here, and I just shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. But do you see what happens with her face? That's one of the reasons I shake it out, because I'm trying to I want energy between the two people. I want that kind of fun connection. So now with your back shoulder, lean towards Mark a little bit, beautiful. And then getting cozy with this chest, beautiful. And now, just for something different, stand up flat-footed for me a second, Lorene. Good. And I want you to bring your feet closer towards me right here, beautiful. And I'm gonna have you push your back hip towards him and bend this knee for me, beautiful. Bring your knees a little closer to the other leg, beautiful. And now with your chest, lean towards Mark, beautiful. Bring your chin forward to me, lovely. And now, Mark, lean into her with your head just a little bit. With both of your chests, I want you to lean towards me. 1, 2, 3. I want you to bring your faces close together and feel the love. That's it, love. And on the count of 3, I want you to bust out laughing for no apparent reason whatsoever. Excellent, beautiful. Okay, great. All right, does that help, I hope?
Awesome.
Okay.
Great.
We talked a little bit about some of the elements that go into good posing. In this case, part of what's happening here, first of all, I love the connection between this couple, and I think lens flare can be a really fun thing to incorporate with people. I think it gives an image, it makes an image just look more like you happened upon a scene, and I think that can be a really good thing. In this particular photograph, part of the problem, the posing is a little bit awkward. And that's because the groom is just turning his face and they're a little bit too close to one another. And because of that, he's turning his face towards her, but most of his body energy is away from her. You know, we talked a lot about that this morning, about the importance of what is the body saying, because the body needs to follow the shape. In other words, it needs to follow the face as well as just, you know, you're not just turning your head, you're turning your entire body.
It's awkward when you have two people looking at each other when they're so close.
Yeah.
It's really hard, like we're trying to look at each other, right? You feel like, because we never look at each other that close. So if I'm gonna get them together, a lot of times I'll just have him look down, right? And her kind of across, but if they're both smiling, then there has a connection. So if you have them look at each other and they're like 2 inches from each other, it's gonna feel uncomfortable and you're gonna get that strained look on that, and that's what you kind of see here.
One of the other things that you can do too, come here, Scotty
Yeah.
Scott, is you notice with this couple, they're very, very close, and then they're just
kind
like,
of like this way.
okay, but they're looking like this. Notice what happens if I just do this. See how, by tilting the top of my head one way or the other. Now, when do you determine which way to tilt that person's head, this way or this? If someone is bigger, has a thick neck right here, you do not tilt their head away from the camera because you might as well be waving a flag that this is right, this is not going to be good. You can do two things. Have them tilt their head to the other side, or change your camera angle so that if you photograph from a higher camera angle, this isn't bad anymore because you're shooting from a higher camera angle. So that's going to make a big difference. The other thing, you got to start with the bottom of the feet. See, with my feet, if I stand, and that's what with her, she's standing, and then her face is pretty much looking up at him like this.
Like this.
So tilt that head one way or the other, and that's going to make your photograph look more believable. It absolutely looks more believable if you have somebody tilt their head. I think this is adorable. I think it's really, really believable. It makes sense to me. I think they look very, very cozy. I like the camera angle. I think I'd like to see a little bit more breathing room. By the way, this would be a great photograph for my website. I'd also like to see, a bit, because I'd like to see a bit more breathing room. This would be a great image that I would think would be awesome in your promotional literature. Because he says we're having fun. It says if you want me to photograph you, then you're going to have a great time, and I'm going to be taking photographs that reflect your personal style. So I commend the maker for that. I like the fact that they've used the right kind of lens. They've used a lens with a shallow depth of field, so that the background does not compete. And I really applaud the maker for going that extra step with some of the other periphery, the little thing with the corn and so forth, to tell a nice story.
I think she wants that little bit of that breathing room. Why? It's because they're looking at each other. So now, like for me, I don't mind that space, but maybe if I would actually maybe have them a bit closer. If she leans her head on his shoulder and looks down and he's looking across her and they're not looking at each other, then that would work in that distance area there. Too. So, but I love the image. I think it has a great feel, you know. I know we're pressed up against time, so we can't talk too long on everything, but it was a great job.
But still, a really good job, and I'd like to commend the maker for doing something that was very fun and playful. Images like this showcase very, very well. So if you have to make a mistake, if you ever get in that situation where you're going, oh gosh, what am I supposed to do? I'm at a loss for maybe a pose. Get crazy and have your clients run around and get something from them. Make them laugh. You know, even if you have to trip on a box and fall on your backside, you do what you have to do to get somebody to laugh and get some energy in that experience. Because if you get that, then you're going to get great expressions, and there is nothing that competes with a great expression.